Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 155 of Discourse in Magic with Kainoa Harbottle. Kainoa is an absolute coin magic king. If you watch him, actually, you should pause right now and go type Kainoa Harbottle Magic or Kainoa Harbottle Coin Magic into Google or YouTube and just watch whatever comes up because he's absolutely going to blow your mind. And I think you should see what he can do even before you listen to his advice. And I think the advice here is great, not only for coin magicians, but for magic and magicians in general. We talk about why it's so challenging to get into coin magic and how you can get over that hump very, very quickly. We talk about plots in magic and plots in coin magic. We talk about table hopping, magic in the late 19th century, and educating your audience on what magic is, as well as a ton of other incredible things. So I think you're going to like the episode. I surely enjoyed it, and he did the impossible, which has got me more excited about coin magic. So here it is. I think they're going to love it. Episode 155 with the one and only Kainoa Harbottle. Hello, friends, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. I am here with the one and only Kainoa Harbottle. Kainoa, how are you?
I'm very good, man. How are you doing?
I am doing very well, and I'm super excited to jump in, talk magic, talk coin magic, talk a little bit about late 19th century magic literature, and really just get deep into it. Let's start at the very beginning. How did you get into magic?
I started it as a performer from like kindergarten. I can remember the first show I ever did when I was in first grade in like a creative drama class, and I was like the weird character that didn't quite fit in, and it just kind of went on. Like by the time I was in like fifth or sixth grade, I was the only kid that knew what spirit gum was and owned a fake mustache because I was the only kid that could pull off the villain character. Because I was like, I had to laugh, and I could. So I've like foreclosed on houses, like I've shut down museums, I've tied people to train tracks, like I've stopped Christmas parties, I've done all the evil things that you could do. And then when about eighth grade, I was in a speech team, and there were a bunch of guys. We all did like comedy pieces for the speech team, and we did really well because we were funny and we could we knew how to deliver. But our the guy who was in charge of the speech team was a gentleman by the name of Brad Kerwin, and Brad is not a technician, but he would do card tricks, and he would take the simplest card trick from a Carl Foley's book, and he could turn it into a 20-minute piece that would have you standing on an edge, wanting to see how it works out, and he would kill with just by telling stories. So what happened one day was that there was a class. It was one of these days where nobody had any school for the grade. Everybody could do whatever you want. So if you want to go play water polo, if you want to go to the beach, if you wanted to work on like weird science things, if you wanted to like shoot rockets, you could do that. And Dr. Kerwin ran a magic session, and you had to learn a trick to get in, and I did. I discovered that a bunch of my friends, people I knew, all had this like deep history in magic. Like I just learned like a trick, like from more self-working card tricks or something like that. And I walked in there and I did that. And what happened very quickly was that the bunch of us that could do magic, that were also in the speech team, started doing kid shows. And we called ourselves the Magic Mafia.
Oh my gosh.
And oh yeah, you can't do that stuff nowadays.
This is incredible.
And so we would wear like ugly fedoras because it's Hawaii. Because I mean, we don't have real, there's not a lot of good places to buy hats in Hawaii unless they're big beach hats, So we'd all wear fedoras, and we go in and we do a mix of comedy and magic. So that was, and I'm still doing like key card stuff. I'm not doing sleight of hand. And then I meet this guy named Curtis Camp. And Curtis Camp at the time period, he had a dinner and a show thing at a hotel in Waikiki. And so he would do magic. There'd be this Italian, what was it? It was like an Italian, it was like a weird mix, Italian Mexican buffet at the Halikoa Hotel. And the Halikoa Hotel is important because it's a military hotel. And I'll come back to why it's important in a second. He said, why don't you just come and do table hopping? And so before the show, I would hit the tables. So I learned very quickly, like, you don't hit them while they're eating, And I learned a lot of lessons very
Mhm.
early on about like how table hopping should work. And I learned very quickly that, self-working card tricks don't do it now. You got to learn some other stuff. You got to learn how to hold a break. I was like, oh my gosh, you know.
Right.
So I started doing more sleight of hand, and Curtis does a lot of coin magic, and so I started learning coin magic. And about a year, I was doing a lot of the stuff that Curtis was doing with coins. So a lot of the Gary Kurtz material, a lot of like this kind of like coin manipulation stuff,
Mhm.
which I thought everybody did. So I mean, so
Yeah.
that's kind of like my journey to doing like. I often think there's like the hobbyist level, where you kind of just start doing stuff, and then there was the moment where it became professional, where I started actually doing table hopping, like working for a lot of people all the time. Because the cool thing about the Halikoa Hotel was because it's a military hotel, you'd have people come back like 1 year later,
Oh,
and they'd be like,
cool. So they
"Oh, yeah,
remember
exactly."
the
Like,
magician
"Oh,
guy.
I remember you. You were here last year." I'm like, "Oh, thank you for remembering. Do you remember what trick I did?" And they would tell you what trick you
Yeah.
did, and you're like, "Oh," or they would tell you
That's
the
amazing.
completely misremembered trick you did. So I learned so much doing that because you're like, I can't do whatever you just said. I
Wow.
can't do. So I'm gonna. It was like, dude, I wish I could do that. I
Yeah.
really wish I could.
Like, I don't know
So
what you said, but that sounds awesome. I'm
well,
in.
you just kind of
Yes.
like, oh, I can't do that anymore. It's so tough. But here, let me show you this. And then you blow them away
Yeah,
with,
exactly. Let me do something less
yeah,
good.
yeah, exactly.
Let's
Sure.
dive in a little bit deeper. One of the things that you said that surprised me is you were telling me that because you do table hopping, you do so much more than coins. And in my brain, I was like, Kainoa, the
Mm,
coin guy, and maybe that's because that's a lot of the magic stuff that you release. So I do want to talk a little bit more about some of the other table hopping things, but I also do want to talk about coins because I do know that you are Kainoa the coin guy. So let's talk. Let's talk a little bit about it. So, I personally have trepidations about coin magic, which I know that your conversations with magicians have led you to understand that probably my trepidations are very similar trepidations as many other magicians. So I figured this would be a very good time for us to talk about it and air what we honestly feel and think about coin magic. And let's get to the
yeah.
bottom of this and figure out how to make it work and how to get coin magic to work and not feel so scary and daunting. So let's start. Why do people hate coin magic so much?
Okay. No, no, wait. No, 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 wait. It's not that okay. People don't hate coin magic, but why do magicians?
No, no. So why do magicians? Why
Why
do
are
magicians or why
magicians?
do magicians
Why do
struggle with it?
magicians
Yeah,
struggle with
that's what I
coin
mean.
magic?
That's what I mean.
Okay, so I feel like I'm this confessional person for a lot of magicians regarding coin magic, because they'll come up to me and they will say, like major players, like people that you won't remember me when I die except for my coin magic, but when this person passes, you'll be like, well, this is a loss of the industry, I mean, this person has changed so many lives, and they come up to me and they're like, I practice coin magic all the time, but I don't do it for people. And I understand because it's tough, but at the same time, the thought that always occurs to me, that something that Curtis Cam said, was like, just man up and palm the fucking coins.
Right.
Just palm them, but I understand why. Because if you think about it, you take a deck of cards out, you palm the top card, right? If you're feeling a lot of heat about that palm, you can put it back on the deck. But if you got a coin in your hand that's concealed from the audience, there's no place to put it. It's just there.
It's even more than that because I think when you do card magic, like you can avoid all things that you require to do magic. Not saying that that would make it good, but
Yeah.
you could
No,
do an
you're right.
entirely self-working trick. You
Exactly.
could do no naturalness. You could know nothing about misdirection. You could know nothing about directing attention. You could know nothing. You could just do the trick, say the words, and people watch and they go, "Wow, I don't know how that worked." With coin magic, as soon as the coin disappears, they look at your other hand. And now you're like, well, fuck, I need to know something that I don't know right now. Like you need to learn much more just how to not put the coin in this hand and that hand, or how to palm it in your hand. And of course, the good news about coin magic is learning coin magic is the unlocking to all of objects, all right, because it's the
Oh yeah.
manipulation.
Oh yes. I talk about this all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, so knowing how to do coin magic means you are a magician, and
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
you do real magic because you can take
Exactly.
objects and manipulate how people look and think, and not that that's not true with card magic, but it's definitely not necessarily true.
Oh yeah,
But I think it's
yeah.
necessarily true with coin magic.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you can't vanish a coin, you're probably not going to be very good at the cups and balls, right?
Totally.
But you can vanish a ball from the cups and balls, then you'd probably do coin magic. But I often talk about coin magic as the starter drug, right? Because
Mm.
it's a thing that leads you on to other things. Because unlike a ball, I mean, if you start with sponge balls, you're screwed, right?
Yeah, because everything's harder than a sponge ball.
Oh yeah, exactly. So why would you like? You can do crazy things with sponge balls. Not that I'm dissing sponge ball magic.
No, but I mean, like, in terms of a false transfer or something, like,
Oh,
you wanna do what an MLB player does and train with a heavy bat so that when you're
yes.
actually
Oh
batting, it's lighter,
yes.
not the opposite,
Yes.
right? Sponge balls
Exactly.
is the opposite.
That's a good, yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Although, what I was going to say is like, sponge ball magic is nothing to shake your head at. I mean, Eugene Berger had a great sponge ball routine. It's
No,
still a
that
great
is
sponge ball routine.
incredible.
I love it.
It's just I think a
It's whatever.
sponge ball is easier to manipulate than a coin, though.
Well, it is, but it's not as pretty to manipulate, right? Like because a lot of people when they palm a sponge ball, they just squeeze it,
Yeah.
and that's why their hands are going to look unnatural.
Okay, so let's talk about it. So why are people afraid to hold out with a coin?
Because card magic doesn't teach you what it means to be natural. Card
Right,
magic teaches you how to do card tricks. So
right,
you always have your left hand, whether you're lefty or righty, you're going to have that one hand up all the time, right?
right.
Kind of like a 45, 90 degree angle, and then your other
Yeah.
hand's going to be doing stuff, right? That's
Yeah,
what you do. And so
yeah.
it's really interesting to think about because I talk about this as like it's a serious problem because you only learn sleights with one hand. And with anything else you manipulate in magic, anything else, you shouldn't think about a dominant hand, right?
You should be ambidextrous.
Exactly. But with
Yeah.
card magic teaches you only do something with one hand. And think about it. Wouldn't it be weird if you're doing like second deals as you usually do to this person, like maybe on your left side, and then you turn over the person on your right side and you just flip the deck over and hold it in your right hand, and then do your second deals from that hand? I mean, that's
Mm.
scary as shit for card guys, right?
Oh, yeah.
But
I don't know why one would do that.
why shouldn't you? I can tell you why. It's because we card magicians play by poker rules, right? By like gambling rules. So the deck
Yeah, well,
shouldn't the
that's
deck
how a normal yeah, like, if I gave
yeah.
someone the cards and I said, "Deal to the people on your left and your right,"
Yeah,
they
exactly.
wouldn't switch.
Yeah, you shouldn't switch, right? You shouldn't because
No.
that could signify cheating in some way,
Yeah.
right? It's about you have to locate the deck in a certain place. But what that does, the tyranny of card magic is what I often call it, is that it teaches you that one hand does one thing and the other hand does something else, and that's the way the world works. But everything else in magic, I mean, why do people, even with you doing cups and balls, why do you only learn to vanish with one hand?
Right.
Why do you learn to vanish with sponge balls with one hand? Why do you only learn to coin vanish with one hand?
What's the, like, solution for a magician who wants to get into coin magic, but I'll just talk about it for me. Like, for
Go
me,
ahead.
I know that any time that I
We're having a
find
confessional moment right now, by the way.
it is. This is what you're talking about.
Yeah,
This is me telling you what
I'm here for you.
thank you. I need a shoulder to cry on about
Whatever.
coin magic. I feel like every time I'm like, I cannot do this. Like, I cannot pull this off. Like, you want me? I was reading this book. I read this trick. It had to be this like coins appearing from my tie. I was like, oh, it's
Oh,
amazing. And I read
that's
the
great.
first
Yeah,
sentence, and then it's like classic palm $5 half dollars. I'm like, what
yeah,
the? Like what? Like
yeah.
what?
Well, okay, so it's about the steps, right? It's like just like card magic, right? We all learn key card. I mean, you didn't start by doing card magic holding a break, did you?
No, I'm sure I learned with self-working and
Like
key
a key
cards
card,
and
something, right? So
yeah,
it's the
yeah,
same
yeah,
thing with
yeah.
coins. Palm one coin, do an amazing trick with the one coin, and then you build up.
How do we learn to do that trick with a one coin, and when it's done it's sufficient? Because I can make a
Yeah,
coin vanish,
right.
but I really feel like I need the
Okay,
edge of a table to lap it to vanish a coin, because people are like, well, what's in your other hand? I'm like, well, fuck the coin.
so here's the thing: like, is a double lift a magic trick?
No,
No. So is a coin vanish a magic trick?
I guess no.
You're right. I would say no. A coin magic is not if you vanish a coin, that's not a magic trick. Just like a double lift is not a magic trick, right?
But a
So
double lift, a coin vanish, no, a coin transfer is not a magic trick.
yeah, exactly. No, yeah,
But a
it's
coin vanish is
uh,
a magic trick. I put a
it
coin in my hand and it vanishes? That sounds
it
like a
creates
trick.
a moment, right? But But do you just do a double lift for double lift sakes? You do a
No, but you
double
could do
lift.
a double lift and show a card and then turn it over and show a different card, and that actually is a trick.
We're right. So, what I'm saying is that you don't do a vanish and show you this hand empty. And so what you just said is I can do double lift and show that card and then show the other card, right? So the when you picked up
Mhm.
the other card, that's not a vanish, right? That's not you're talking about another step. That's not a double lift.
Right.
A double lift is showing the two cards as one, and then you affect the change, right?
Mm.
You create the moment of change. So a vanish isn't a trick.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what
It
you're
has to
saying.
go somewhere else, right?
Right.
So I do this. I've done this one coin routine, but I call it the bachelor routine because it's a one coin routine and it's something I've always done, and it tells a story. And I think you got to tell a story to people in order to get them to figure out where it goes. And it was really Max Maven's work that kind of like I already had the routine, and then I looked at Max Maven's work and I was like, wow, this just gave me justification because Max Maven
Right.
is all about the false explanation as magic,
Yeah.
and that's beautiful stuff. So when I do my one coin routine, it's not just about this coin vanishes and does what you know. So when I do that routine, it's like the pattern is this. I usually say, all right, so I'm going to do some magic for you folks. Have you ever seen some magic before? And sometimes they say yes. Most of the times they say no. I'm like, okay, so let me show you what magic works, and I'll show you how it's done. They're like, oh, okay. And then I do this one coin routine because the one coin routine starts with a lot of magic, a lot of vanishes, done back to back. And then I say, well, I'll tell you how it's done. And then you give a false explanation that is some ways more magical than what you just did. And then you build from there.
So one of the things that I'm understanding is that and this is actually something that I wanted to chat with you a little bit later about, but it was more about the theater. But I think a lot of the answers to that part, especially the one coin part, is about plot. It
Yeah.
seems like you care
Oh,
a lot and put a lot of work into what the plot of the trick is. And I
yes.
think that that's something that maybe, I don't know, I don't even think about so much in coin magic. Like I know there's a few coin plots that I know very well. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
know
I
that
get it.
there's
I
a few
understand.
like three fly, like coins
Yeah.
across, like matrixes, like there
Coins to
are
the
plots
table,
that I
right? Yeah.
know
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
are
yeah.
plots that I know well, but maybe I don't know that I thought of every. I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it so broadly. And I
Wow.
think that part of it, I guess, is that
No,
right
you just made
is
me realize a couple of things because with card magic, it's different, right? Because you can talk about the ace assembly plot, right? And you can sit around with
mhm,
a bunch of magicians and everyone show their variation of the ace assembly plot, right? It's and you can do the same thing with coins, but it doesn't have the same value in some ways. But thinking about plot is very important. Like how do you structure it? Even with coins across, how do you structure it? How do you make it work in the space? Especially when you're doing table hopping. I'm not the guy. I learned from David Roth, I think off of Betamax tape. And even then, I knew that you can't do the same move 4 times in a row to make the 4 coins go
right,
across.
right.
I mean, you could, but maybe that's not the best strategy. So we create variations and we work from there.
Let's keep moving forward on the coin train and let's try to better understand what's going on here. So the first thing there I think is really helpful is I was talking about like I wouldn't even vanish a coin for an audience. And
Yeah,
basically you're like, you shouldn't even vanish a coin for an audience. You have to come up with an actual plot and
right.
learn an actual thing. So
Yeah.
let's say I set out to learn to do actual plot or learn a little bit deeper than just I'm going to vanish a coin and be like, why aren't they impressed?
Hmm.
Let's say that I want to go a little bit deeper now, and we touched on this earlier, but as a card magician, I don't have to learn things like misdirection or naturalness, or I don't have to know how I normally carry myself
You
so that I can
should.
compare it to how I know. No, no, sorry. I don't have to. I
Right.
don't
Right.
have to. The more I do, the better. But I'm saying that like you could sneak through these cracks of card magic, and you could even like succeed. You could become a full time card magician and
Well,
never
yeah.
have to think about those things, but you can't even get through your first coin trick without thinking about those things. So let's talk about that now. So what can somebody do to start thinking about naturalness or start thinking about misdirection so that they can even do this first trick
Well,
and have it feel like they are transferring a coin or that they're not palming a coin or whatever.
I've tried to teach a lot of people how to vanish coin. And the weirdest thing is watching them try to do it.
When you go like, "Put the coin in this hand," and then you go, "You forgot to close your hand," and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh."
Yeah, they don't get it. Like, they don't get how to not do something. So when I was at the University of Delaware and teaching, I did some workshop work in the theater department with their actors and with the kids that had the acting minor. And I would sit there and like, okay, so we're gonna act right now, and we're gonna do magic. And they're like, what? I'm like, okay, we're gonna vanish a coin, and it's all about acting. And even then, even when you tell them that it's about acting, they don't quite get the fact that they don't quite get the mechanics, right? That
Mhm.
if you take a coin and put it in your hand, and then if you take a coin and don't put it in your hand, it should look exactly the same, right?
Right.
I mean that's the basis of how coin magic works.
Mhm.
In some ways, not really actually. If you talk about a lot of the techniques nowadays, a lot of the retention stuff is that's another story. But if I'm
Yeah,
just
there
going
are
to
some
act, right? Or if I just hold the coin in my hand, palm up hand, and pick it up and make it disappear, yeah, yeah, people have a huge problem with that. And so I would sit there for a couple hours usually, and try to work with them. And the first thing I would tell them, to go to your question, is that there is no naturalism in magic. In life in general, there is no naturalism. There's no such thing as naturalism. It's a lie.
So, what that means is there's no natural way to do a thing.
So there is no general naturalism,
Right.
right? Because you will do a coin
I'm
vanish
different
in
than
one way,
you.
and I
Right.
do it differently. Garrett will do it one way. John Bourne will
And
do it another
Vernon
way.
spoke about that, he
Oh,
watched people
yeah.
put their
I,
jackets on, and everyone put their jacket on
and
differently.
I love Vernon because Vernon like speaks the truth all the time, and it's just
Yeah.
whether people listen or not. So naturalism is constructed, and so you can construct it on a daily basis. So I'll tell you what I did, and because I'm messed up this way, I've made decisions in my coin work over the years. There are two major decisions I made. The first one was to work with my left hand rather than my right. I'm a right-handed person, but I took all my major material and taught it to myself with my left hand.
Wow. I guess so that you can use your right hand for your all the major stuff that you're doing, and then
Well, yeah, what's the most important thing you do with your right hand when you're meeting people for the first time?
oh, brilliant. You shake their
You
hand,
shake
so
your
now you
hands.
keep your
You shake their
coins
hands and you
palmed in
touch
the other hand.
and you can touch their shoulder. You can touch their shoulder. You can touch their elbows. Like
Oh,
you can do the whole thing.
brilliant.
So I decided to do that.
Brilliant.
It was a decision I made. The other major thing I made with my life was to, when you gesture, you study your own gestures, right? How do you gesture? And now, and I'm actually doing it right now. You can't see me. I'm doing it right now, and I gesture like I'm finger palming coins
Oh.
all the time, no matter what I'm doing, because I would do it in the classroom. I would do it in the classroom when I was teaching with like 22 kids, and they had no idea I was palming coins the whole time until I dropped one, because I drop them occasionally, you
Right,
know.
and they'll be like, "Where did that
What, I was like,
come
what the?
from?"
Oh, I'm sorry, kids. I have some quarters, and they'd be like, wait, that's not a quarter. I'm like, shut up. And, you know, I move on,
Sorry.
and it's
Yeah.
okay. So if you can, yeah. But whether you're working for a lecture hall of 300 people or whether you're working in a small classroom, you palm the coins. And I always tell people, like, if you're starting out and you're nervous, like, palming coins isn't a big deal. You don't have to fool people all the time.
Right.
When you go to the water cooler at work, you're carrying around your coffee mug at work, palm a fucking coin. Just palm it.
Mhm.
Just palm the coin. If
Just
you're
palm the
if
coin.
you're walking around with it, you don't have to think about, oh, I'm fooling people right now. You just have to think,
Right.
I'm palming a coin. I'm figuring out
And also, one of the things that does is it builds the naturalness in
exactly,
for you. Like, now you know
exactly,
how to pick up objects.
exactly. Every day, every time you pick up an object, that's what you do.
You know how to do it with a coin palm the
Yeah,
same way you do without a coin palm because you always have a coin palm.
exactly. I mean, think about it. We construct naturalness. That's the other bad thing about card magic, is that everybody who does card magic looks exactly the same.
Everybody who does card magic looks exactly the same. What do you mean by that?
Well, their hand is always in one position, and their other hand is always doing something else.
Oh, right.
See what I mean? Structurally. Now, certain people do it in very different ways. Like Leonard Green is very different from like
Yeah.
Chris Kenner, or
Yeah.
you could say, no, Kainoa, you're wrong. But in some ways, structurally, the one hand always has to be in one place, and the other hand has to always be in another place. It's not a happy claim I'm making, but I'm just saying. I'm not trying to. You know, you can disagree with me. Go ahead. I'm fine with that.
Um,
Because
you know what? I mean, I think people handle them very similarly. But it definitely goes back to what you're saying about like how people in general handle
yeah,
cards. So I don't think there's like so much. I don't think there's so much room to handle cards terribly differently. But I think obviously people with their own
mm, mm.
styles do so.
Oh, of course.
Um,
Well, because if you watch Darwin Otez versus Juan Tamariz, I mean that's a very different. Those are very different worlds.
of course,
But
of course.
they hold the cards in one hand. They do the
Mhm.
magic. You know what I mean?
Okay, so let's hit on one more thing with this coin magic before we move on
Please.
or move backwards into the 19th century, which is I'm sort of trying to let you help me blow the excuses out of the water for anybody who's new to this or who wants to do this or who wants to do it better,
Yeah.
right? So the first one is okay, just palm the damn coin,
Yeah. Just
right?
do it.
Just palm the damn coin, and you get better at it and you get natural at
Yeah.
it. The second is, and this one that I think is actually really important, and it's more and more important the more I think about it, is like to really just think about the plot and to think about the routining. Like so
Yeah.
much of what we see now, like of coin
Well.
magic on Instagram,
Yeah.
is just like you like quickly open and close your hand and the coin is vanished, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But that's something that'll really scare someone away from coin
So
magic,
that's the
right?
problem for the magicians. Let me talk about that real fast, and then I'll do the other questions. But yeah,
Sure, please, please,
when you
please.
see a lot of the Instagram stuff or YouTube stuff, a lot of that stuff is like boom, vanish. But it's not. That's not a plot. It's a great vanish. They're beautiful vanishes, right?
Right.
I mean, it's gorgeous, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, dude, that's amazing!" But
Yeah.
that's not plot.
It's the equivalent of a snap change
Yep.
for a camera.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. It's so eye-opening to break down coin magic like that and to really, like think about plots in coin magic a little bit more. The last thing I think is like you said a little bit at the beginning is people are afraid to do coin magic. I think there's like you are like bluffing and lying and holding out so many more times and so
Right.
so often and
Yeah.
so and not as much in coin in card magic or even other magic in general. Like I feel like you have to pull off a lot, right?
Yeah. So you're reminding me of the I was talking about Joshua J earlier with you.
Mm. Hmm.
And Josh, before I came out to he wanted me to do like a 15-minute set at Magi Fest. And he asked me a couple questions. The first thing he asked me, like, would you like to talk about your relationship with theater and magic? Because you're like, there are not a lot of people who actually work
Hmm.
at a university and do magic at the same time.
Hmm.
And so you have a very particular perspective of it. The second thing he said to me, which was really sweet, was that he said, I hate coin magic. Josh says it. Josh
Hmm.
lectures coin magic. He lectures like a trick set. I don't know if he
Yeah.
still does it, but he did at the time. He said, "But I love your coin magic because it's so entertaining. Why does so much of the coin magic I see suck? Like, why do I hate it so much?" And there was like that little bit of ego in me that was like, the first time I
Right.
saw that, I was
Right.
like,
Because I'm
well, because
awesome,
I'm awesome,
Josh.
Josh. I mean, come on, dude. What the,
Because I'm the
come on.
best.
I'm,
And next
yeah,
question.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. And then I thought about it, and I suddenly realized, the problem with this is that it's all statistical. It's all about the number.
It's all what?
It's statistical. It's all about the numbers. All right. So okay. So let's go. So imagine with me right now, we're at a convention, and there are 100 magicians in the room, and I'm standing in front of them, and I say, ask everybody to hold up their hands. I say, how many here do card magic? They all hold up their hands, right?
Oh, you're just saying that like because so few people do coin
Yeah.
magic that there's so few of the best coin magicians because there's
Well,
just so few.
exactly. Well, the problem is, so yes, yeah, that's part of it. Thank you for getting that so fast. I really appreciate it because I usually have to discuss
I
this
have
with
a
people.
degree in math. You have a
So
degree
you,
in English, mine's in math.
good.
So that's all.
This is great. Oh, good, cool. So the problem is that when you see there's a so then if you do math, then you know about Sturgeon's theorem.
I'm sure I do. Give me 4 seconds to refresh myself.
Yeah, so Sturgeon's theorem or law is that 90% of everything is crap.
Yeah.
Right? And if you think about it, it's so true. Like 90% of all the cars, crap. 90% of all the washer dryers, crap. Right? 90% of, like, if you just think about the things you interact in life, 90% of it, yeah, it's crap. So the story behind this idea was that he was a sci-fi writer. People like me, like the literary intellectuals, invited him to a space to talk about like the quality of sci-fi writing. And they were like, "Well, Mr. Sturgeon, why is so much of sci-fi writing so bad?" And he said, "Everything, 90% of everything is crap." And so that's why there's certain people in the 19th century you've never heard of, right? Writers that I've had to read, no one's ever heard of, because it's kind of crappy now. Crap is like obviously conditional, right? But Max Maven wrote this piece, but he talked about the Sturgeon's rule, and he tried to raise it to 95% of magic is crap.
Oh, he gave another 5%.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's Max. And then he also
Just
did a
because he
psycho.
hates
Totally.
magic. Hates
Well,
magicians,
he
I mean.
hates a lot of the bad magic he sees, right?
Of course.
As
We
we
all
all
do.
do, right? And so then he also did a psychoanalytic reasoning, a total psychoanalytic reading of all the people doing magic at the time period. And I was like, ouch, this is painful. But it was
Right.
true when I read it. I was like, yeah. And so what I would argue is that because there's so many card magicians, you're going to see a lot of good card magic because you're seeing that 10%. That's what you see.
Hmm.
When you see a lot of coin magic, there are very few of them, right?
So how do we do it? So how do we get more coin magicians? If I was picketing for coin magicians at the next big magic
If you're
convention,
picketing for them.
what would I write on my sign? Like, no, but I mean it.
No, I'm
Like,
serious.
what do I write on my sign at the next big magic? Does it say like just palm the damn
Yeah,
coin? Does it say
that's
like what's the thing that's gonna win over more people to team coin magic so that though that top 10% is bigger?
don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
You can you,
Do not fear. Kainoa's here. Coins are
you
here.
can yeah,
Half
exactly. Don't you
dollars
mean you can
are here.
I mean if you do card magic well, you probably know how to fool people. You
Mhm.
realize they're not looking at your hands at certain points. So there are certain tricks with coins, not like the one where you have to palm 5 coins, but so
Right.
the other thing you mentioned was like most people don't know what the most important part of Bobos is. The most important section of Bobos is the end, because if you try to sit down and read Bobos, I can see people like getting upset halfway through, or not even halfway, like 5 pages in. I can see people getting upset. The most important section of Bobos is in the back. It's the routine section. And so what they did was they constructed routines so that you can actually look and say, okay, so you read this on page 94, you read this on page 33, you read this page on 150, and there's a routine. So you
Right.
can see structure. Because if you just
Mhm.
try to do just vanish coin and make people happy about that, you're right, they're going to look at your other hand. But if you can
Mhm.
structure a routine, I mean, that's the thing with card magic, it's kind of built in. A lot of it's built in.
It is. It is usually built in, and coin magic, you maybe don't think about it. And like for me, there's a few select coin tricks that I
Yeah.
do, and I mean most of them are based around just the gimmick or whatever.
Oh,
Like I do imagination coins,
yeah, that's a
right?
great
Like,
trick.
and that's just like the one coin trick I do, and it's got a plot
Oh,
like
dude.
the other tricks that I do, and
Yeah.
now it feels comfy to do. Like
Sure.
I feel all of a sudden good and okay to do it versus like if I wouldn't walk around with like 4 coins to do anything, but that's probably just because I don't have full routines that I
Right,
would,
right, right.
you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I feel comfortable with my imagination
Hey,
coins, but I don't necessarily feel comfortable with a copper silver
trust
yet,
me.
or with
Oh,
or
well,
with.
then you need to watch my coins 101. No, but yeah, but that trick, the imagination coins has saved me a number of occasions because it plays.
Yeah.
It packs small, plays big. There are certain
Oh
situations I
yeah.
was in and I didn't have anything on me except my coins. They're like, "Well, could you do something
Mhm.
for us?" I'm like, hello, 100 people. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll do this for you." And yeah, yeah. See, but because it's structured.
And exactly, and that was what I was gonna say. Is like it feels like I have a routine in my pocket and not a bunch of coins. And I think that that maybe is a lot of the I don't know with a deck of cards. I feel like I look at it and I'm like, all my tricks, they're all inside of here, all the possibilities. And with coins, I'm like, but maybe that's just me. And maybe of course it comes with being more comfortable with it, and with it's all par for the course.
Well, the other thing about coin magic is that the other thing that I hear from people is that, well, it's so expensive. And I'm like, how much money do you people spend on decks of cards alone?
No, I
You know?
it's not it's so not expensive. It's like $50 to do a miracle and have a coin that like changes and flips and
Well,
flaps and all this shit.
yeah.
What? It breaks after 2 years, like, so great. So it costed you 30 cents a performance. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it's
Well, but the thing is, like, I go into like high end coins, and I didn't know it was high end at the time. I just thought everybody had them. So I'm holding in my hands right now the barber set that I had made by Todd Lassen. It's so old; it's before Todd was even like printing his name on inside the coins, because no one else was doing barber sets. I've had this set for probably. I was asking him about it, and I thought it was longer, but probably about like at least 13 years. So I paid $350 when I got the set, and now I have an act.
like buying a good suit.
Well, exactly. I'm not saying you should go out and buy like all the greatest gaff, all the gaffs that are like the hottest new gaff. Don't do that. Buy a good shell, buy a good copper silver coin. That's all you need, and you'll
Right.
be able to do amazing things.
It's about just changing a mindset. You know, in cards,
Yeah.
maybe you think it's like disposable or something,
Yeah.
and then
Oh
coins, you maybe
yeah.
think of it more like you think of it more like, buying your instrument or your paintbrushes or whatever.
But that's the thing. They're disposable, but you're still going to buy more.
Let's move forward a little bit. I wanted to talk about table hopping.
Sure.
And what I wanted to talk about that is you mentioned that you called yourself a
Yeah.
generalist and that you do loads of different magic when you're table hopping, and also that you learned a lot of the lessons of table
Yeah.
hopping. Maybe not the hard way, but you learned all the lessons
Well,
being dropped into it, and having to learn how to do table hopping magic. So I'd love to hear a little bit about maybe some of the lessons that you learned about table hopping, and maybe what somebody who is in their first few steps
sure.
into table hopping, some advice that you can give them for their back pocket so that they can go and try
Oh, that's a
without
great
fear.
question. So the first lesson I learned, I was out there one night. The first one of the first nights I was there, I was doing my routine, and then the people were just talking to me, and I'm just trying to get through the set. And I'm a nice guy. I'll talk back to people, right? I mean, this is very early on, and they were asking me questions. They were talking to me about stuff. And I'm sitting there. This is back when I was doing a lot of card stuff. I was doing Michael Ammar's "The Iceman Cometh." So I have like a frozen card with a corner missing in the card case on the table, and I'm just trying to get through this trick. And they're talking to me, and it all worked out at the end. I did the trick. People are amazed. It's a fucking card in a block of ice with the missing corner that matches.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
never going to see
It's
that
a
again, right?
miracle.
I had a cooler in the back. So after the show, this is a table hopping at Curtis's show at the Halico Hotel, and after the show, I said, I'm trying to get through this magic, but they keep talking to me. And he said, "That's your job." And I was like, "What?" It's like, "No, that's your job. You talk to people. That's your job." And a lot of guys who do table work will tell you the same thing. Garrett will. You're not there to sell magic. You're there to make them happy that they're there. And he was like,
Hmm.
"Look, some of them just want to talk to and shake hands with the magician, and then they're happy." And I looked at him like he was crazy. I was like, "Wow." I mean, that was a mind blower. And then that changed my close up, I mean, forever. Like first night out, that was a lesson I learned. I was like, wow, okay. So my job, I'm there to make people happy. It doesn't. It's not about my magic. It's just about talking to people, and it's about listening. I've done a lot of restaurant table hopping as well in Hawaii, and the cold approach is tough. It is tough. You got to go in there and you got to
Yeah.
break the bubble, and you got to get in there and get into their space, and they're not expecting it, right? But the thing is, like working at a
Hmm.
magic show, everyone wanted to see magic. They want to see it at their table. So they see you moving through the
Right.
room. They wanted you to come and
Right.
talk to
They're
them.
like, "Oh, bring him here."
Exactly.
Right.
And so that's why you had to have a lot of material, because that table three.
Everyone wanted to see, and they wanted to see more, and they wanted to see next year the
Well, yeah,
the
but and
difference.
like three tables down, they're watching you. Well, crap, I
Right.
can't do the same card trick over there. I got to figure out
Right.
what I'm going to do. But the most important lesson I learned table hopping was just talk to people. I've gone to a lot of places that have magicians in them, restaurants. I'm just there to eat, and it just happens that there's a magician there. And I don't say anything. I'm not going to sit there like, "Hello, I'm Kainoa Harbottle. How are you?" I
Mhm.
don't care. But I've seen bad table hits, and it's always about themselves and not about the audience. And to me, you're there as like the concierge, right? I mean, you're there to make them comfortable.
Mhm.
And That's the first thing with close-up magic. The first thing with close-up magic when you're doing table hopping is that it's not about magic, it's about you. And the first person that would back me up about that is Eugene Berger. You know, I
Mhm.
mean, his whole thing about is like table hopping is like you're the first thing they see. That's what you're selling, and that's important. And just going up to a table and say, "Hi, how you guys doing tonight?" and actually mean it, because a lot of magicians go up, "Hi, how you guys doing tonight? Here, let me show you a card. Let me show you the ambitious card." Right? And
Totally.
that's just like,
It's so easy as a magician on and off stage to be
yeah,
inauthentic,
oh,
you know? We have so many opportunities to do so because we recite scripts and we say the same things over and over
yeah,
again that it's so easy to be inauthentic and not present and,
yes, not
just to
present is
go
yeah,
and say, "Hi, welcome. I'm this. Hi, you enjoying yourself?
yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Here, well,
Let's do
let's
this.
do
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Here,
No, no,
here,
no, no.
grab a
Yeah,
card, do this."
yeah. It's not your job to do that.
It's so easy to do
You,
that. Yeah, and what you just said is exactly right. Like you are out there as a
yeah,
person and as a
yeah.
magician. And at the end of the night, you want them to say like, I met a magician
Well,
tonight,
you hope
like
that they did, or you would actually, if you're working in a restaurant, you want them to walk away and say, "I love this place. I'll come
I had
back.
an amazing time. This
This
place is
place,
great.
this
Exactly.
place." And oh yeah, oh well, it was mainly because of the magician. And
This
and they
place is
come
the
back and like,
best.
oh, he's not working tonight. Oh, and then they realize, But it's all about that
Hmm.
hospitality moment, right? Creating hospitality is
Hmm.
it's just hard to teach. The biggest problem, well, there are many problems with magic, but the biggest problem is ego, right? It's about, I do this
Hmm.
because I want to fool people. I do this because this makes me powerful, right? That's the biggest problem with magic. I
Hmm.
love doing, I mean, I can show off my coin work, but a lot of the stuff I do for lay people is card work where they're doing the magic. I prefer that. That
Hmm.
makes me happy.
You're not parading your awesomeness over them.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll go in, I'll do bam, 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 coin magic, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, it takes a lifetime to learn. That's what I do for them. And then I'm serious. And then I'll just do a card trick that, anybody can learn. Anybody can learn on the street. But if you don't present it the right way, they don't learn how to
Right.
create that moment of hospitality. And magic is often about that ego base. But if you realize it's about them, so that was an incredible, important lesson that I learned. And I'm thinking back about it now, and it's just amazing that I got to learn it.
One of the things that becomes really clear, that you're
Mm.
saying is about that moment you were talking
Hmm.
about earlier when you got into magic with the
Yeah.
speechwriter who, elevated a trick
Hmm.
so much by just,
Oh
writing good
yeah.
words to go with it and putting together a good story. And I think that, one of the things that you have that, and I would say don't don't be so quick to give away all the credit to Sturgeon's Law as to why your coin magic is the one that doesn't suck. Because I think that you care a little bit more about the plot and the experience
Oh
that
yeah.
than many coin
Well,
magicians
yeah.
might. And the words that you're saying and that whole the theatrics of it all that isn't just the look at my
Yeah.
hands move, look at
Yeah.
me go, look at what I can do, look at this
Hmm.
miracle, ta-da, ta-da, ta-da,
Yeah.
now what, right? Like, I think that it's clear that you're trying to strive above that. I know you were more talking about it in terms of the card magic, but just even still, like, you watch the plots and things that you do in your coin
Oh
magic,
yeah.
like, you obviously care more about the
Oh,
audience
it's
experience
all
than
about, if you don't do magic because you want people to see good magic, you go do something else. Really. When I started out, this is a story that I haven't told in a while, but when I lecture, I talk about this.
yes.
So when I was starting out, um, I'd hit a table and I'd nail them with whatever I was doing, right? And they look at me like, "Wow, you're really good." And what pissed me off was the sound of surprise in their voice.
You're like, shouldn't you have said you're really good,
Yeah,
not
exactly.
you're
You're
really
really good.
good?
Like a question, like, wow. And so,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
wearing jeans and a t-shirt and a blazer. This is Hawaii, by the way. Like my blazers are from like thrift shops, right? Like I'm not we
Mm,
don't wear blazers in Hawaii. So I was like, okay,
mhm.
so I gotta up the game a little bit. So I was like, maybe it's obviously not, it's about how I dress. So I started wearing like ties. I get like a button-down shirt and ties with a blazer and nice pants, and I'd hit the tables. And I'm sweating like a pig because it's freaking Hawaii. We're right on the beach in Waikiki. And they'd be like,
Uh-huh.
"Wow, you're really good." And it's still the same, like, and I'm like, well, maybe it's my presentation. maybe I'm just trying to be too interactive. I'm playful. I'm funny. I'm playing with what people are doing. I mean, that for me was the biggest thing. Like, because when you're hitting tables, you just have to be playful. Just like whatever they're up to, you talk about whatever they're up to. It's not about you. I don't
Right.
care. Eventually, I'm
Yeah.
gonna blow them away with whatever I'm doing because I'm confident about with what
Yeah.
I do at that point. But I was like, but I'm like, I remember there was a young woman who had a Polaroid camera, and she was taking pictures of all the people around her. Like, I mean, this is way back. This tells you how old I am. And I was like, well, take a picture of me with your family. Then do this, do that, and I'll autograph it for you. I don't care. It was and that took like 10 minutes, and I didn't even do any magic for them yet. It was like one of those weird
Right.
things. So I kept hearing it. Wow, you're really good. That surprise. So years and years passed. Eventually, I was at the University of Delaware. I was teaching in the English and theater departments, and they asked me to MC a little show they were doing that was about like some sort of Renaissance Bacchanal weird, you know, intellectual thing. I'm like, yeah, I'll MC, and they hadn't seen me do magic yet. And I was like, I'll
Mhm.
I'll be your MC and I'll do some magic. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. So I started like, my opener is usually like a $100 bill switch that's like from a one to a
Mhm.
mismade bill to $100 bill, then back again. I mean, that
Mhm.
kills people. That you can't walk away from
Mhm.
that without being like, what the WTF would happen. Um, and I was doing some other pieces. Um, at the very end of it, the woman walked up to me that asked me to do the MC work. She said, "Wow, you're really good." Like the same thing. And again, I'm like, it's like 15 years later probably.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing a jeans and a goofy T-shirt and a blazer again. It's a nicer blazer at that point, but the problem is that no one ever finished the sentence. And then what she said to me
Right.
was, "I always thought that magic was like about like clowns in the backyard, and but you made it really entertaining." And I was like, "Holy crap!"
Right. It wasn't their assumptions about you, it was their assumptions about magic.
Yeah. And then the thing I always tell magicians when I talk about this is that, go out and do the best magic you can. Because every time you perform, you don't know who you're performing for. Most of them probably don't watch YouTube.
Right.
Some of them might know who Shin Lim is, but probably they don't because they don't care. They don't think about magic all the time like we do. You're creating the definition of magic right now for them with what you do. And if you don't do the best thing you can do, you're ruining this moment. You're responsible.
See, what a great way to put it is you're defining magic for the
Yeah, you're defining magic. So a lot of my tricks are actually about defining magic. So when she said that, I was like, dang, this is such a big responsibility that we have all the time. Every time we
right.
perform, we're messing with someone's world. We're recreating the definition of magic. And the depressing thing is that is why when you take a deck of cards out, people say, "Oh, I've seen that one."
Because it's the one
Because they only think there's one trick. Because by the way,
Mhm.
anytime someone tells that, I start talking about Ed Marlowe. I give them a whole history lesson about card magic because I try to change the way that they think about things. Because that's, I think, what's very important I try to define magic for my audience. That's what I do with my patter all the time. All my patter is really about how do you define magic? How do you think about it? Because I don't want a dumb audience. I want a smart audience. I want an audience that is smart that can still fool.
And I agree with you. I think what you were saying before about the fact that we are oftentimes like changing per people's perception about
Every
what
time.
magic is just with
Yep.
what we're doing. And that makes it so much, the
Oh
heat
yeah.
is on now, like we got to be good, we got to be great. And I also feel that people always said to me like, wow, you're so
Yeah.
good. I even jokingly say it like when people go like, oh my gosh, you're
Yeah.
actually good. And I'm like,
Yeah.
actually, why
Yeah.
actually, right? But it's interesting that that is the reason why they're saying it, is because of their assumptions not about me but
Exactly.
about magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about magic in the late 19th century. And I know that this is the topic which you have your
Yeah.
PhD
For better, for
in,
worse.
and which, for better
Yeah.
or
Lots
for
of bad life
worse.
choices. So I'm riding the ride.
And here's what I like to think, I like to think that when we go and we get a degree, Obviously, we all have big bookshelves
Hmm.
worth of magic, and we forget most of it. And the same thing is true when we go and get a degree, and we forget, we
Hmm.
forget most of it, right? Like just a few key, amazing, really like things that really excite you and they really tickle
Oh
you
my
about
goodness.
magic or about, what you love. You know what I'm
No,
about
go
to
ahead.
ask you, right? For me, like there's a few key things about math, a few key lessons
Mm.
that I learned that really stuck with me, or a few key moments, or a few key things that opened my eyes. Is there
Oh.
anything that you learned in your studies of late 19th century magic,
Mm.
and also, how it was documented
Yeah.
at the time, that can inform us about either magic today, or something about how this magic is being documented right now, or anything
Well,
of that
I'll
nature?
create a moment of contrast first, and then I'll make a moment of how we're similar. So, when I was doing this research, you could find a lot of material about the time period, but you also find a lot of material about people reminiscing about the time period. So, you'd have these people like in the early
Mm,
1900s, like before the World War One, writing these pieces that were about like missing the spaces of magic or missing certain things. They'd all create this weird trifecta of what was acceptable entertainment in the late Victorian period. So you have to remember that in we think of them as Kaji. Um, the Victorians were weird, late 19th century. So in England at the time period, I mean, and they were the controlling force, on the planet. But at the time period, there are three things that people said were the acceptable things you could see. One was Madame Tussauds, which is still around today, the waxworks. That was
right.
educational, and it was deeply educational, actually. So the thing about the waxworks were they were totally modern. Like if you were famous, they'd make
Hmm.
something new. And they try to do it nowadays, but we don't think about them because we have so many other things to deal with. We have the internet,
Right.
right? We don't care about.
Yeah. Wax museums are small compared to the internet.
But if you've never gone to a Madame Tussauds place or a waxworks museum, you got to go. Because magic is about three-dimensional entertainment. And if you walk into a three-dimensional space like a waxworks, it's creepy and amazing because out of the corner of your eye, they'll start moving. So there are two other forms of entertainment that was acceptable. Magic was one of them. So Egyptian Hall was very important in the history of English magic, where J.M. Masculine was kind of maintaining his like sitting. He was sitting on his throne there in Egyptian Hall. The third one was minstrelsy, so white people wearing blackface.
Oh my lord.
So these were the three forms of entertainment that were acceptable. And when I found that out, I was like, "Wow, I know
What?
it's crazy,
That's
right?"
crazy. So there was no one thing. Let me just understand. So there was no like theater or acting.
Oh no, there was theater and acting, but it was too risque at the time period. Music halls were around, and but you never know what. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, was there music?
oh
Like,
yeah, there was totally music, and there was like you go you could go hear a music show. But what was the most acceptable things that would be most educational were these three things. And what I learned was
ah,
the connectedness of all these things because I was when I saw it, and it kept coming up in these pieces. I was so confused. Like, why would you put these pieces together?
w- why is
Well,
anyone talking about these
waxworks,
three things?
magic,
Yeah.
minstrelsy. And I realized that they're all constructs. Magic isn't real; it's a construct of power.
Right.
Waxworks aren't real; it's a construct of who these people are. Minstrelsy is definitely not real; it's a construct of race. So you realize
Hmm.
that magic is in this weird space. The other thing that I learned, Jan Maskelyne, who's the guy that wrote like the definition of magic in the Encyclopedia Britannica and such, he lied in those things because he worked on automatons, and that was his magic.
So what did he say?
He would tell people that these were real automatons, but they were magic tricks, and people freaked out
Oh
because
wow.
people were like, "There's no way that this can't be like spiritualist or something like that." People freaked out, and it was great because he didn't care because it made more sales. The weirdest thing about what he was doing at the time period was that it was that lie, you know. It's like, well, I'm gonna tell you all
Right.
about the history of magic. So he and if you look at the Encyclopedia Britannica in like the like the 1870s and work it back to the 1911, And you can see where he's like combining these definitions, and he's just like taking and cutting and pasting, basically, like the way we do now. But he would tell people that these are real things. And in
Mhm.
the 1870s, it was great. Problem was he tried to revive them in the 19 like tens, and no one cared anymore because it looked too stodgy. It didn't look right. So
Hmm.
the weirdest thing about that time period was that you can see the aging of magic.
Yeah, it's happening like decade to decade.
Yeah, exactly. And so the thing about the biggest person who was involved with masculine is David Devant. And David Devant was like masculine's like little dude that he told to run around do stuff. And of course, David Devant was like, I
Mhm.
know where the future is going. And masculine was like, well, you know, no one's going to care about film in the future. Film is a lie. No one's going to care about this technology. David Devant was like, no, it's going to be important. And so there's a great moment, and if you read David Devant's autobiography, David Devant almost thought about not even doing magic. He thought about just like, I'm just going to do film.
Whoa.
And then he changed his mind. So one of the cool things I got to see when I was in London was film footage from David Devant on top of what we think is Egyptian Hall, doing magic tricks with film probably for the first time, like making a bunny appear from a hat. It was
Wow.
cool stuff like that because he realized what the genre could do. And he realized how it might
Mhm.
change the world. But of course, the more important thing is that David Devant changed the way. David Devant is like the modern father of stage magic. You know, he talked a lot,
Mhm.
but at the same time, he told key stories, and so that for me was amazing. Thinking of the social aspects, you know, so like how do we deal with this space where why is magic with waxworks and minstrelsy? Why is magic like a safety zone? We don't think about either of those two today.
Why is magic the one that
Survived. Well, the problem is that minstrelsy still survives in the politics today
I
in
guess.
a bad way, as recent events have shown uh, down here in America. Um, Waxworks are still around, so that's why you can go to Madame Tussauds in New York City. But
Mhm.
there's not. It feels like a fake thing. You don't go to New York City to go do that, right? You go to New York City to like eat in
Yeah.
a restaurant that you've never been able to eat before. Um,
Or go see a magic
well,
show.
yes, and so but magic. So we're this weird thing that's hung on, and so that
Mhm.
working on this project made me really rethink what who are we now? Like, why are we important now? Why is magic important now? That's a huge question for me.
And what do you think the answer is?
The answer is that what I hear every time I do table hopping, it's that I've never seen that in reality before, like in real life. You know, you hit a table,
Mhm.
like it's a two top, and you just do whatever card trick you do, whatever it is. And they sit there and often they used to say this back in the day when I started. They still say it today. Like I've seen this on television or on the internet, but I've never seen it here.
Right.
And the problem with for
Mhm.
us is that we have to convert people kind of like one group at a time. Because if they watch
Yeah.
internet, magic, they're going to treat it the same way they treat stage magic.
And the Now You See Me movies.
Oh yeah.
Those are all equivalent. You know what I mean? Like those are all
Oh yeah.
fictional TV magic. What you're saying right now is very, very eye opening. That the point of magic now is to challenge the things like
Oh yeah.
VR. Like magic is augmented reality, but actually augmented reality. You know what I mean? Like that's what.
It's here with us right now. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where your research was about when things like film were just about to
Hmm.
challenge things like magic. I feel like maybe now we're on the other side of the coin where like the point of magic
Yes.
now is to challenge things like, these experiences like film or
Yep.
videos or, these
Yep.
viral magic videos, but to challenge them
Exactamundo. That's
in-person
I mean that's who we
experience
are.
in
And
the
if you
flesh.
don't do that, then I mean, if you think about your favorite workers right now, your favorite close-up workers. I'm
Mhm.
not talking about people who like do magic on the stage, but your favorite,
No,
yeah,
close
close-up
up like
workers. I mean,
workers.
they're people that break that boundary. That's what they do. They figured out how to break
Yeah.
that boundary and make it real. Well, create an experience for these people that for the people that live in a virtual world. I mean, half the time I think about nowadays when I work, it's like half the time I just want them to put their phone down, you know. And you get to like maybe one moment in your magic trick, and they still haven't put their phone down. Get to the next moment in their routine. I mean, this is why I do multi. You know, the thing about coin magic is that if they suddenly put their phone down in the middle of it, like then you know you got them. You got to be able to catch people and make them focus in on this magic because people are rude and it happens all the time, and that's okay. People are focused in the world that they want to live in, but our job as magicians is to make them realize that there's another world. There's another way to look at life, right?
I love it. I wanted to talk to you about learning and teaching in magic and two things. So I wanted to very briefly talk about, and I know we already sort of spoke about some coin magic and some first steps, but I wanted to talk about as a magician what you think the best way is to go about learning. And then I think we'll talk a little bit about educating your audience in a bit. But first, I want to talk about, I know you're a tutor, so you spend a lot of time teaching people things, and a lot of time,
Yeah.
I have this incredible feeling, and I always have, that magic and teaching are hand in hand because
Yep.
they're both,
Totally.
magic, teaching says A means B means C means D, and they follow
Yep.
along
Yep.
each step. Magic is the same thing, except one of those steps is a lie, and or more than one or more of those steps is a lie, and it leads to
But
this,
maybe
like,
the lesson is more important, right?
I agree with you. I think, and there's more to it and stuff. But let's talk first about magician. So, as a magician, what is, I don't want to say the best way to learn, but maybe what are ways that you've found success, or what are some ways that if somebody's getting into magic and they're maybe struggling with the way they learn now, or they don't enjoy the way they learn now, or they're not growing quickly enough in the way they learn now, what do you recommend?
Two things. One thing I already said. You carry the props with you all the time.
Yeah.
If you don't have the props on you
Hmm.
because they're like precious or whatever they are, I don't care if it's color changing knives. I don't care if it's like a rain and rope routine. If you don't carry it on you, or you don't have it like in a little bag or something that you carry, you have a backpack, like you're going to school or whatever, carry your props with you because it's the immediacy of the moment, right? Because there's going to be a moment where you're just sitting there and you don't have
Hmm.
anything else to do. Whether you're waiting for the car to get done, you're waiting for the next class, and you don't have any homework to do, I don't care. You should be working on something. You should be working all the time. Have your props with you. If you don't have your props with you, that's not my fault. That's not my fault. That's not anybody. It's not anybody's fault. You know, it's your fault. If you want to learn magic, you need to have your props with you. If you want to become a master of cards, have the cards in your hand all the time. You know, I have friends. I mean, I didn't mean to say friends like it's not meaningful. I have friends. They walk into a restaurant, and the first thing they do is they plop down a close-up pad. And, you know, and they start
Right.
like false sealing cards. That's who they are, and that's if you know. And maybe I don't think they're at the point where they. Some of my friends, I don't think they're at the point where they have to keep doing that. But if you're at the point that you want to learn like how to do a second deal, then carry around what you need. Be ready at all times. Always, always, always have your props on hand. Because if you think about it like, well, tomorrow I'm going to work on that. Those props are over there on the other side of the room. I can see them. They're beautiful. They're shiny. If you don't have them on you,
Right.
it's your fault. Have your props on you all the time. I don't, they might fall in your pocket. Guess what? You're going to lose shit. Yeah, it's going to happen. You're going to drop amazing things. That's okay. But you got to be prepared for that, and that's why but just have them on you. Because if you think they're so precious,
Mhm.
I have to set aside like 3 hours this weekend, and I'm going to work on my magic. You're never going to do that. You're not going to do that. If maybe some people are disciplined enough to do that, but just carry them on you all the time.
You gotta get used to that muscle, not only the actual muscle of holding the coin in your darn hand, but the muscle of, like, how to pick stuff up and put
Well,
stuff down and feel
yeah,
comfortable
but
hiding stuff
psychologically,
and all of that.
you got to be comfortable with it. I'm fooling people all the time, and they don't care. You know what I mean? Like I'm just drinking from my coffee cup. And
Mhm.
I have this coin. I have like 5 coins in my hand, and no one cares because we're talking about relay a
Mhm.
spreadsheet about this company's downfall that I have to stop somehow, right?
Mhm.
And that's what but I'm holding my cup of coffee in my hand. I'm fooling people.
Right,
But
right.
you don't need to think about it as like I'm trying to
Mhm.
fool people. You just need to think about like you're learning the muscle memory and you're gaining the confidence that this is who I am all the time.
I love it. Anything else that people should think about if they want to, if they're learning or they're getting tired of the way that they're currently learning magic, or they need some way to get better faster than what they're
Um,
currently doing?
I'm a strong proponent for performing. Perform a lot. When I moved to California to do my undergrad, I became a junior member at the castle because I wasn't old enough yet to be a full-on member. And I went in for the day that a bunch of juniors were doing other things. And I met a lot of people. And I'd say, where do you perform? And they're like, well, I perform for my club. I was like, wow, these people have a club. They own a club, or their family. They go to a club and because I was like, when they asked me where I perform, oh, I perform in hotels and like in Waikiki, all over Hawaii. And they look at me and they kind of give me this face. I'm like, okay. They go to the next guy, like, well, I perform. And I said, where do you perform? Like, oh, for my club. And I'm like, wow, all these guys are so rich. They must own a club. Oh, I was like amazed by this. I was like, well, this is LA. This is Los Angeles. So obviously, and I didn't. It took me about like 5 guys to realize they're talking about their magic club. Yeah, I thought they actually owned like a club, like their dad owned a club or something. Like I was like, wow, you know. I was like, oh, these people don't work for real people. Working for real people as much as you
Right.
can, I think, is the other thing. Take your magic out. I had a student.
Mhm.
He would do these cold approaches in coffee shops. And instead of coming up and saying, "Hello, I'm a magician. Would you like to see some magic?" He would say, "Hey, I'm trying to learn some magic tricks. Would you guys like to see what I'm working on?" And what he realized was that
Right.
moment of like, so you downsell, right? The moment, and then you
Mhm.
you whack him hard because he was doing like hardcore coin magic, and I was like, "Dude, you're like smacking these people around." He's like, "Yeah, I know," but it gave me the confidence to approach the table if I would just say,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm working on this stuff. I'm trying to learn to be a magician. Would you guys like to see what I'm working on? I just need some help." So if you come to if you're working at some material that you're not at the point where you're like consciously able to do it all the time, you're just trying to find some people that you can work it out on. Just be real. Just say, I'm trying to work this out. Could you
Mhm.
help me? Just ask them and see what happens.
Mhm.
And you might not fool them. And guess what? That's okay because you'll learn from that moment. But if you do fool them, then you'll learn from that moment too. If you don't perform,
Perform often as much as you
yeah,
can.
if you don't perform, it's not real magic.
And not just magicians, perform for actual real humans.
Oh yes, real humans. Oh yeah.
That's the
No,
whole,
don't
yeah,
yeah, don't
real
perform for
humans.
magicians. They're the worst audience.
And the last thing I wanted to talk
Okay.
about before we get to the wrap up stuff is educating
Oh
your audience. So I know that was something that you wanted
yeah.
to chat a little bit about, and I know that we did already in talking about how people's assumptions about magic, and then we're the
Yep.
things that change it. And I think that we feel it already. We know how much we have to
Hmm.
educate our audience because anybody who performs know they start asking questions about magic and stuff. And I really loved what you said earlier about how we build their
Yeah.
world and we put their world of what they know
Definitely.
about magic
Definitely.
together and we build it right in front of them. So how do you educate your audience?
It's a terrible responsibility, but we do it, right? So like I would do like a couple of
Hmm.
examples I give you. I'll do a ring and rope routine. And I would talk about, well, magic is a puzzle. And talk about, well, magic is about a trick ropes, or magic is about sleight of hand. Magic is about, and what I try to do is break down how they think about all the different ways they talk about magic. Like what, because magic is a term they use it, but they don't really know what it means. So for me, that was the and then each sequence I would do like a sequence like here's a puzzle. I'm gonna put the ring. How do I put the ring on the rope without you see me do it? You know, I've tied a knot in this rope. I have a
Hmm.
ring here. How do I get the ring on the rope? Oh, it's a puzzle, right? So you can figure this out, but maybe not. And so then it moves on to something else. Um, I've done a dollar bill routine for a long time, And the idea was, I'm going to show you right now the difference between a trick, between an illusion, and actual magic. And first of all, most people think of these as synonyms, but they're not. You need to understand the difference. So I do the trick where I'd borrow a dollar bill and I'd fold it up and the dollar bill would turn upside down. And I'd say, well, that's a trick, right? Obviously, anybody can learn how to do that. So I try to show you an illusion. And then I'd take the dollar bill and turn it into a mismade bill. And now this is an illusion because this can't exist. Even though you can touch it, rub it, feel it, pet it, it isn't real. But this can't exist in the real world. Even though you can tell it's a real dollar bill. And you fold it up again and it becomes $100 bill. And that's the moment where you grant someone's wish. Basically, you say, if I could do real magic with a dollar bill, and this is always an interesting question.
What would it really be?
If I could do real magic with a dollar bill, what could I do? And most of the times they don't say turn it into 100. Most of the times they say turn it back. Most times they say make it disappear. They don't know if you could. They don't know if magic is real. Then I could grant a wish. I could do anything with this $1 bill. What would I do with it? Most people would say you're sitting there waiting for that Amar moment, right? Because Amar was always like, well, the reason you do a $100 bill change is that you wait for them to say the moment, like, can you change it to a $100 bill, right?
Turn it to
And so you sit there and you wait for it, and they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
But they don't. That's not how they think about magic nowadays. And so then you eventually you get that hit. Like, well, I mean, that's impossible. And if I can take this bill, boom, boom, you have a $100 bill, and then you show it on both sides, and then you change that back to the dollar bill they borrow. So those ideas, that idea of pattern, even with the coin work that I do nowadays, if you've seen my work on DVD called Misbehaving, that work is all it builds, right? So it's impossible magic, it's impossible coin magic, and I say, well, let me explain it to you how it works. And so I'm always about explaining things to people, to my audience, because I talk about this with Garrett a lot, because he and I talk about the idea that fooling people is, in what other point in your life do you want people to fool you?
Never.
Right. You don't want them to, personal. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, maybe you watch a movie. So you go to movies to see someone fool you, but at the same time, I still remember that moment of Jurassic Park. The first time I saw Jurassic Park, and it was like a huge moment because it was CGI. The first time they ever really did really good CGI.
Yeah.
That first moment when they're hiding behind a log. And the thing was, I knew it was filmed in Hawaii, so it made me happy. Yeah. So I could recognize this valley, like I knew where they were. But the dinosaurs that were running from the T-Rex, the time period, pushed down on the log, and the people behind it were hiding there. I was like, that's freaking amazing. But I also knew, oh, that's CGI. Like, I was like, that's what they can do. That's great. But I don't think that's what we want, right? We don't want that moment.
Right.
We don't want anyone to say, well, that's great because they can.
Impossible.
Well, we want it to be impossible in the real world.
Right.
Never in that mediated world. And that's why I talk about a lot of my work in the 19th century. It's not about, and back then, it was all about being physical and being there and seeing things. And nowadays, we're not there anymore. So how do you make them smarter? You want to make them smarter because you want to change their definition of magic, right? So that's why, the key things that I do with a lot of my material is to focus in on making, actually saying things like, well, what is magic? Think about it, think about what is magic? If you're not a magician, you don't think about this all the time. No. So if I can make my audiences smarter, that means I have to be better for them. And I'm ready for that.
Part of it is who you are, right? And you're an educator, so you love sharing that light bulb moment, and I do too. I mean, it's like I feel the very same way. Like if I'm not leaving my audience better off than they were before, like I don't want them. I don't want my audience leaving the show believing things about the world that aren't true. I'd rather their eyes be opened to the world as well as experience incredible stuff. So I love that, and I love the way that you inform your audience. We are getting towards the end of the episode, and we've got a whole bunch of wrap-up questions. So the first one is the endless chain. So in order to keep the podcast going on for eternity, each guest recommends a bunch or one or two or a few other guests
Oh,
So the podcast goes on forever. So who do you think we absolutely must feature on the
oh,
podcast?
Curtis Camp.
Curtis Cam, love it. I had a
First
feeling
person.
that was going to be the answer. Actually,
Yeah.
there was another name that you had told me before we pressed recording about somebody who you were jamming with, who's really awesome, with Garrett Thomas at the recent
Oh,
Penguin
John
convention.
Bourne. Yeah.
John
Yeah, John.
Bourne. Yeah,
Oh,
I
John's
want
yeah,
to look into him.
John's
Yeah,
very interesting. Yeah, yeah, you'll
yeah, I
love
wanted
John.
to look into him.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Cool. That's amazing. The next question that I wanted to ask is about modern magic. And I think we've spoken about it a little bit,
Mhm.
but what is something in the 2019-2020 world of magic that you like, and something in the 2019-2020 world of magic that you could do without?
Oh, wow. Well, what I like right now is a certain trend I see. It's in very few people, but it's a trend that I'm moving towards, which is audience-centered magic.
Yeah.
It's not about
It is happening. It is happening. It is
oh
a
yeah,
trend.
this is not about us. It has to be about them. So like I love doing card tricks where it's about what they can do,
Yeah.
right?
Me
So
too.
so that's definitely something I like. The thing I don't like right now, Rubik's cube.
Oh, that's good.
I
That's
mean,
good answer.
everybody does it, and it's a big seller. And back in the day, I remember when it was a hot thing. Well, I remember when people were starting to work on it. Remember,
Mhm.
like Garrett
You mean
and
as a oh yeah, I was wondering if you meant as when people started loving it as magic or when people started loving it as a
oh,
fun toy. I didn't
oh,
know
no,
which
no, no.
one.
I mean, I remember when Daryl came
As
out with his
magic. Yeah,
routine.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Garrett was doing it. Garrett was using it as an opener for a
Yeah.
long time. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, all these Rubik's Cube stuff came out, and I was like,
Yep.
yeah, that turned me off of that routine. Like I always like I would have worked on it, but Garrett was doing it, and it felt
Yeah.
weird. And now everyone's doing Rubik's Cube, and it just to me, it's like, okay, well, if that's what you can manipulate, again, you don't have to palm anything, right? It's self-contained.
Totally.
So that
It's
kind of makes me angry. It's like it's like some of it can be self-working, some of it can't. But yeah,
yeah. But you know what I think a lot of that comes to what we were talking about earlier is there are tricks like that that become incredibly popular because they don't require
yep,
all of these skills that are
hmm
required to do, I keep calling it real magic, but maybe what I want to say is like physical magic, right? Like
yeah, oh
magic
sure,
with stuff, like
yeah,
the Rubik's cubes all of a sudden is a whole new genre where you're doing magic
right,
with stuff, but you don't have to learn things like naturalness, misdirect, you know what I
yeah,
mean, just or
yeah,
just
yeah.
barely, right? Like, or I mean,
Yeah.
like, your magic is better if you do, but you don't have to.
What's weird about it is you can embrace your nerdiness, right? Because you don't have to
Totally.
talk to people. You can sit around with Rubik's cube all day long by yourself.
Yeah.
It kind of it kind of says that. I don't know.
I love
So,
that. The next part is the favorite part. So people have been listening to this episode for an hour and a bit, and we've talked about everything under the sun, and they're probably doing anything from commuting to doing their laundry to whatever.
bless them,
So exactly, bless them all first of all,
bless
but
them.
also I want to make sure that they don't leave this episode and just think to themselves, "Wow, that was fun," but instead they think, "Wow, I'm going to take home this incredible this. If I can take home one message, it'll be this one incredible message from today as a summary." So for me, I really like talking about coins as a plot, and that
Hmm
might be a lot of the solution that
Oh yeah,
people are missing, and maybe
yeah,
that
definitely.
might be where a lot of the discomfort feels with coin magic is I don't feel like I'm starting with great plots, and the ones that I do have are the ones that really do feel like they work. So that was one that really stuck with me, and I love what you were saying about the purpose of magic
Mm.
being like almost the opposite of seeing these sort of magic and these sort of alternate realities on
Oh yeah,
the internet and with goggles of sorts and things like that. And I really
yeah.
love
Oh no,
that.
magic is the anti
Hmm.
technology.
And for you, what was a highlight of the episode that you think people should take home? Something that you said that you think is the most important.
I mean, for me, it's like be responsible. Be responsible for your magic. If you
Right.
don't, I mean, the one thing I want to tell people is that every time you perform, you create a definition of magic for someone there. Maybe not the main person you're performing for, but there might be like a little kid next to them.
Hmm.
And that person, that kid's going to grow up and that's going to be their definition of magic.
Hmm.
And so you're, that's a heavy load. It's a crazy heavy load. So everything you do needs to be amazing and incredible. For me, that's always been like what I focus on. I just want people to do the best magic they can. You know, be that 10%. You know,
Hmm.
be that.
Totally.
Yeah, be that because that's how we get people to love magic. Otherwise, they'll
Totally.
just treat it as a. They'll just say, "Oh, I've seen that trick before."
You
I
know what?
love it.
I love that idea, that thought of saying, whoever you are, I know whoever you are right now, you're listening to this and you're saying, wow, this Sturgeon's Law, that's so funny because I'm in the 10%, but everyone else is in the lower 90. Like, I know
Yeah.
that if you're listening to that, you're thinking this. I know you are. And that's because I am and you are and they all are and everyone is. So instead of thinking to yourself, I wish the lower 90 would all get better as good as me,
Yeah.
instead think, what else can I do to
Yep.
guarantee myself a spot in that top 10%? If somebody comes, if the king magician comes in a decade, Hunger Games style, and he goes, the bottom 90% is not allowed to perform anymore.
No.
Are you going to make the cut? That's what you ask yourself. Are
No,
you going to make
it was always Michael Amar I thought about, who'd say, like, what trick would you perform for the Pope? That was
Oh,
like a
yeah,
weird trick. I'm
exactly.
like, because I'm not Catholic, and I was like, I don't care, but at the same
Mhm.
time, he has some influence, you know.
Yeah.
So what trick would you
Mhm.
what I wouldn't say the president necessarily, but what trick would you do for the major figure that you really appreciate? What's the one trick that you would do to
Exactly.
convince them that magic is real?
Hmm.
Magic is a reality that they need to think about,
Yeah.
right?
And that they get
I
to experience, or just to give them that experience.
Yeah, exactly. So I know what
I
trick
love
I
it.
do. So
What trick would that be?
it's misbehaving. It's my opener. It's the
Misbehaving,
opener.
yes, I
It's
know
the
it. It's
opener
a
I do all the time.
fantastic pick of yours, yeah. It's
So
great. That's amazing, and the very last thing is like this, and this we've almost been beating around this bush the entire time, and that's
mm,
because it's such a big wealth of knowledge that I wanted to leave it for its whole separate part, but I know that you have put in so much into helping magicians get into coin magic
yeah.
with amazing resources. So where can people go to start finding some of the things that you've put together for magic and coin magic? I know you've got magic published all
Yeah.
around the world, but I know you have also put a lot of work into that systematic
Yeah.
learning.
So there are different places you can go. My website, magicofkainoa.com. I've got a lot of you'll see a lot of the hardcore stuff I do. Coins on Edge. This is a publication from, geez Louise, many years ago. But it'll teach you a lot of the material that I do and show you a lot of the techniques I use. If you're just starting out, I would strongly advise everybody. If you don't have a real Magic Magazine account, it's like $5 a month. People get it because you get lots of stuff. You get me, you get Garrett, you get a lot of material, and on there is my Coins 101. And what Cosmo asked me to do in filming this was like, what would you have done? What would be your version of Bobo's if you never had a Bobo's? And I was like, okay. So there's a lot of sleights that are not in Bobo's that I teach, and it starts very slow. So what I do is I teach you like the finger palm, and I teach you all these sleights that connect with that, and then I teach you a routine,
Right.
and
It's
then
like it's like the card college of coin tricks.
that's how I kind of think of it that way. I don't know what most people think about it that way, but that's how I think about it. So then
Yeah.
the next thing is the classic palm, and now we take the lessons from the finger palm and classic palm, put them
Yeah.
together, and now we teach you a new routine using those things. So,
Well, that
um,
sounds like the way to that sounds like the road in, like
yeah, the Royal Road to Coin Magic, yeah,
the royal road to coin. That's what
that
I
would
should have said.
be. You
That
know
would have
what?
been clever if I said that, but you said that, so that's
I
perfect.
did, yeah. Now I'm thinking, now I'm pissed. I should have named it that. Damn it.
Yeah, you should have. So, well,
What
it's
was I
coming.
thinking?
Someone's gonna name it that soon, unless I edit this part out. So
No. Keep it in. No, because I'll no, because if they
now
do,
you
we
have
know where
credit.
they got
Now
it
you have
from.
earliest credit. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You got the credit right now. So,
I love it.
um,
I love it. And with that, we are wrapping up towards the end. Is there anything else you want to tell all the magicians of the world?
palm the damn coins, bitches.
Palm the damn coins. I think that's going to be the title of the episode.
That's
Just
fine.
palm It would be palm the fucking coins if I wasn't worried. Just palm the damn coins. I love it. I think
Yeah.
that's amazing.
You have
Uh,
to have palm the damn coins, comma, bitches. I think that's important.
palm the damn coins, bitches.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think that's
maybe
important.
I'll leave out the bitches,
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
screw them. Let them palm the coins. I love
Yeah.
it. And with that, Kainoa, thank you so much for an
Thank you,
incredible
sir.
episode.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, of course, and a big thank you to all the people who listened to the episode and all the people who are listening to this with a coin palmed in their hand,
You better be.
excited. Exactly, you better be. And if you don't, Kainoa is coming after you.
That's right.
He's gonna put coins in your hands. That's what your dreams are haunted by someone palming your coins for you or something. Anyways,
Oh.
thank you all so much for being here, and we will see you all next Thursday. Well, there you go. I hope you liked it, and I hope you learned something, and I hope that you currently have a coin palmed. And if you don't, then palm one. Here, let me grab a coin. No, this one's big enough, and I'll palm it. And right now it's 2 p.m., and I'll hold it in my hand until I go to sleep. Today's going to be a long day. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to the episode. Thank you for palming coins. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next Thursday. Peace.